Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ralph from Harold the Soon Coming King, broadcasting to you from the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. Today is October 30th of 2024. I want to share with you two dreams and a vision the Lord gave me regarding the return of the Lord, His second coming. He's given me that date, and I know for many that will be a very difficult thing to accept. But if you'll at least persevere here for a little bit, hopefully that will give you some assurance on how to research this on your own. I want to set some parameters around that understanding, and in doing so, you'll need to probably do some additional study through other websites if you do not hold some of the basic tenets that I hold in regards to some of the key pieces of understanding. I have my notes here so I don't forget anything, and that is these things. That, first of all, that there is a difference between the rapture, day of the Lord, and a second coming. Because having that understanding is important, because the day of the Lord is the day that no man knows. The day of the Lord is that day that no one can know except the angels don't know it, Jesus doesn't know it, only the Father knows it. And so we can't know that date. But because it's a separate event from the rapture, and indeed there is more than one rapture, but at least that understanding that it's different. The day of the Lord occurs after the abomination of desolation, but before His second coming. Again, the day that we can't know. And then there's the date of His second coming, a date that we can know. And I believe the Lord has shared that with me, and I want to share it with you. The other understanding is that this is, before I forget, the website that I would recommend to go to is Brenda Weltner, Weltner. Several years ago, as the Lord began to unfold this new understanding of the end time events. 3 or 4 years had gone by, and then I found her website and found out her and I had some very common things, much in common. And indeed, she's added to that knowledge. So if you want to understand that there's more than one rapture, the difference between rapture, day of the Lord, a second coming, and many other things, I would recommend her website. She's an anointed teacher. Secondarily, this really isn't for those of us today. I mean, you're obviously going to, if you're interested, listen. But this is really for believers of the future. It is for those that will come to know the Lord in the future time frames. And I felt that the Lord wanted it here for posterity's sake. So keep that in mind as you're considering what I've got to share. And then the other thing is that the feast days are critical to this understanding. And my suggestion is that you go to Mikal, M-I-K-A-L, Mikal Shabbat Scriptural Studies, so that you get I think, the best understanding of how to identify the actual dates of the feasts, because he uses the sun, moon, and stars, as Scripture says we should, to number our days and to establish the appointed feasts of the Lord, as opposed to the calendars that are solar only, lunar only, solar and lunar, some other configuration. If we don't use the stars that are mentioned in Scripture and have that understanding with the sun and the moon, we'll not get the dates correct. And that's important because the Feast of Trumpets was not the date that was listed by the Israeli calendar, which is the Hillel calendar. And therefore, because that was not the correct date, and we count forward, the Feast of Tabernacles isn't past as we sit here on October 30th. It is actually just right in front of us, starting on the 1st of November, going at 7 days length, and then, of course, having the last day, the Great Assembly, Shemini Atzeret, on the 8th. So we're actually looking to the Feast of Tabernacles. So with that, let's get into the dreams. Again, please be a Berean and study to make sure that you're comfortable with those ideas. And if you're not, obviously you're not going to accept it. And indeed, one of the dreams points to that. And I'm going to do the second dream first and the first dream second, because I think that it's important that we understand a few things before we get to the actual date. And the first dream the Lord gave me, or excuse me, the second dream the Lord gave me occurred on July 28th of 2019, 5 years ago. In that dream, there was, I was in some large public space, felt like a train station, like the Grand Central Station um, kind of space. And I had a piece of paper, and I knew that one of four of us, I was one of four that had this slip of paper that showed the date of the Lord's coming. And uh, I approached this large public counter. And as I approached this large public counter, I tried to give them the piece of paper with the date, and they would not accept it. And so I turned around, and as I started to turn around and go walk out, I saw a smaller counter. And in the dream, I identified it as a financial counter. But I think the significance, of course, is that it was a smaller counter. And there was somebody behind that. I walked over and I gave them the piece of paper, and they accepted it. So I turned to walk away, and as I did, I saw a large red train come into the picture, hence the train station. And as I did, I said, "Oh, that's the Lord's return. He's coming." And just off of that, I saw a large group of people, and there's somebody in that crowd waving and saying to me, "Come this way. Come over here. Come this way." And for a moment, I was confused because I was thinking, well, that was not the way I was going. I was going the other way. And well, maybe I'm going the wrong way. But just as soon as I had that thought, I just had the next thought that no, I'm going the right way. That large group isn't going the right way. And I continued on my way and woke up. And I think the key symbolisms in the dream is one, that even in sharing this today, the large public counter, represented the idea that the vast majority of those who hear this will not accept the information. And the Lord was telling me that in advance. That's why I wanted to go ahead and share this first. And then only a smaller group would actually accept what I had to say, what I believe the Lord was sharing. And so whether it was the financial piece means anything or not, I really don't know. It's just a smaller counter. The other important part is the idea that there's four. Now, I don't know if there really is just four of us, or if four, which is such a symbolic number throughout Scripture, is the important fact. But I just telling you the dream as I had it. And thinking of the four horsemen, the four chariots, the four corners of the earth, the four horns, the four winds, the four angels. I mean, there's a lot of places where four is a very specific number, and I don't really know all its symbolism. But the first dream occurred, and this is the most important part because it gives the date. The first dream occurred on March the 17th of 2019, and in that dream, there was again four. I'll call them superheroes, and I think the fact that we were into heaven, suspended. There was three in one group, and I was off to the side. I was either engaged with somebody else or talking or looking at something. I wasn't sure, but I was also interfacing with these three. And I think it's important right up front to say the superheroes, not that we were better than anybody else, but that indeed we were glorified believers. So the superheroes, as it were God's glorified believers. And as the three of them specifically were hotly debating, when the Lord was coming, when was the date of his coming. And as they were doing that, all of a sudden the Lord appeared. He appeared in clouds enveloping on both sides, clouds at his feet. He was in a white robe. There was a kind of a gold sash, not sash, but belt. And I could see his face, although I couldn't describe it today if I tried. I just know that I saw it fully. And he matter-of-factly said the date. That's all he said. He said 10/22. And just like that, the clouds kind of re-enveloped him, and he was gone. And we all looked at each other like stunned. And it's like, he just told us the date he was coming. And we were like perplexed a little bit. But then I woke up. And I think that the important parts here is this was kind of like a Back to the Future 2 type of moment. In the fact that the glorified believers, the superheroes, we were in space. So obviously we had been raptured. We were there, not on the earth. And that the Lord was showing me really a future event that was going to occur where he would speak to us four. Who knows if he spoke to anybody else, but he spoke to us four. And that I was now back here and sharing that information. So it's, again, kind of that Back to the Future moment. The other thing that's important about the 10/22 date is that When you look at the Hebrew calendar, of course, the seventh month, which starts the turn of the year, the head of the year, is trumpets, and that's always on the first, right? And that kicks off the new year. And when you do the math from that, you count off the days to atonement. From atonement, you count off the days to tabernacles. You have the 7 days of tabernacles. Well, that is always the 22nd because that's the number of days. There's 22 days when you do the math. And so that means tabernacles is always on the 22nd. So I think some year in the future, our Roman Greco calendar of October will line up with that seventh month or the beginning of the new year of the Hebrew true year. And they will overlay, right? Because typically they do. Ninth or 10th month usually is when the feast days in the fall occur. And so his return is obviously on the last day of tabernacles. And that brings us to the vision, because I was having some question even back then, what to do with that information. I told nobody for 5 years. Beginning of this month, I began to feel like maybe I should share it. I was feeling more of a sense that now was the right time. And on the 10th of October of this year, I had a vision. And I know it was a vision because I was in bed, but I was not asleep yet. I was in that place where you have that sense that you're about ready to go to sleep, but you're not, but you're semi-aware. And the door to the bedroom was open. And this all happened in an instant of time, less than a second, the three things I'm about ready to tell you. And I also knew that I was not only when it finished, did I realize I was not in the same time, space, or dimension. I'm not sure which of that it was, but I was not, to see those three things, I was not in whatever, the current space, time, or dimension. And so that's why I believe it was a vision. And so I heard a large crack. It sounded like a crack of thunder. Now my wife was up. The door to the bedroom was open, and I remember thinking in the vision, oh, I wonder if that's my wife who made the noise. Right on the heels of that, almost instantaneously, I saw a blinding flash of light, also in the doorway, through into the other room. And again, the same thought, is that my wife turning on the light, or is that something else? At the same instant, on the heels of that, I turned my head slightly to the left to see the bedroom clock, and it was 10:22. And in that very instant of time, I knew that this was the Lord confirming that this was the date that he had given me, and that I needed to share it. So I waited. Oh, and then I kind of fell back into the bed, as it were. Not that I was physically elevated out of the bed, but I kind of like fell back into, well, I'll just call it this space or time, or dimension. And I knew that I had seen a vision. And I just, rolled over and went to bed. But now I knew that I needed to share this for sure, because the Lord had confirmed it to me. I went to let the time go as I was praying about it some more. Let the date of 10:22 pass, because I didn't want any confusion or any misunderstanding that I was trying to indicate the day of the rapture, but that we're talking about the second coming. And now here we are, on the 30th of October. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I think it's important to understand that this, again, I want to emphasize, is really a year in the future. I don't know what year. I believe that because we are close to the rapture of outlined in scriptures, I think 2024 is a very possible year, as many call it, a high watch window. And if that's true, then of course we can start to look into the future and see that when that second coming would occur. And yet, if it isn't, then it's pick up that template, move it forward, and it's some year here in the future. But I do believe that's very, very, very close, not 1,000 years or 100 years into the future. So with that, be blessed. If you can receive this, great. Study it. Ask the Lord. See what he says to you. If not, again, remember, this is not really for you, but I wanted to put it in for posterity's sake. And as I always say, look up, because your redemption is drawing near. Sorry, folks, I had my sunglasses on. I couldn't see how to close it off. So, again, look up.